So please pay attention, turn on your cameras, please. Enciendan las cámaras. I start recording the class.
Hey, I'm Emma from...
Let's go. What happened?
English. Welcome to a fascinating, interesting grammar lesson. Another one in our series about conditional sentences. If you're learning English, you will definitely find this lesson helpful. This type of grammar lesson might sound serious, but learning to use conditionals effectively is going to help you to express yourself clearly and be really creative with English. Conditionals are really common. Native speakers use them all the time. So if you start paying attention, you are definitely going to notice this sentence structure as you're reading, and even as you're listening too, you'll hear it more. In this video, we're going to focus on the zero conditional and the first conditional. And we'll talk about how they're different, but importantly, when you should use one or the other, because that's a little confusing. If you enjoy my lessons, make sure you subscribe every day. You will. I would have paid more attention to it at school. So each of these sentences has an if clause and a main clause, but there are some differences between them, especially with verb tenses and time references. And all of this changes the meaning. One of them is a fact. Another is about the present, but it's an unreal present. Another is about an imaginary past. Today, we're going to focus on these two, the zero and the first conditional. The zero conditional is also called the factual or the real conditional because we use it to talk about truths and facts, things that are real in the world. We also use it to talk about habits and rules and to give instructions that are the result of something else happening first. So in other words, if this happens, then this is the result, always, okay? It's a fact, it's the truth, it's just how it is, it's what happens. Let's take a closer look at what it looks like because it's really simple. We use the present simple in both clauses. Now, why does it say if or when can be used in the if clause? It's a good question. In the zero conditional, you can use either if or when in the if clause. And the meaning with either word is pretty similar, but we use if when there is a chance that the action will happen, but it might not happen as well, okay? If it does happen, then we know exactly what the result will be. If I work out, I feel healthier. So I work out, and the result is pretty obvious. When I do work out, I feel healthier. I feel better about myself. It's true. But that doesn't mean that I do it all the time, right? I don't always feel healthy, especially if I don't work out. We use when we know for sure that that action is going to happen. We might not know exactly when it's going to happen, but we know that it will, okay? When I work out, I feel healthier. So I've removed the possibility that it's not going to happen. There's no question about it. I will work out. The specific time doesn't matter. We just know that it's going to happen in the future. So it's a subtle difference, very, very subtle. And the same difference actually applies in the first conditional. We can use if or when as well in the first conditional, but we'll get to that. Back to forming the zero conditional, let's look at a few examples to help us do that. When the sun sets, it gets dark. If you leave milk out, it spoils. If the power goes out, we can't watch TV. So these are all facts and truths, right? Now, what about this sentence? In winter, it's cold. Is it a zero conditional sentence? It's a fact. It has the present simple verb, but it's not a conditional sentence. Can you tell me why? We don't have two clauses. It is a fact, but we don't have the condition and the result clause. It's just a present simple sentence. But what about now? If it's cold, light the fire. Now we've got a condition and the result. And this is a good example of how the zero conditional can be used to give instructions. And I'm using the imperative form to do that. I'm telling you what to do, instructing you. We also use the zero conditional to talk about rules. Children can swim if an adult is with them. And we use it to talk about habits. If it's hot, I go to the beach. This is something that I usually do. It's a habit, right? It happens often. Can you see how, in all of these examples, that the two separate parts of the sentence are connected? We're stating a fact or a truth in the main clause, but it's only possible on the condition that the if clause occurs. So now we know that the zero conditional is the factual or the real conditional. What about the first conditional? It's also called the possible conditional. Now, we're not talking about facts anymore, okay? Things that are absolutely 100% true. Now we're talking about possible future results. They might happen, but they might not happen as well. So can you guess when it might be useful to use the first conditional? A time when you're thinking about what's possible in the future. We can use it to talk about predictions, superstitions, plans, promises, offers, suggestions, and warnings. Like, there's a lot of different ways that we can use the first conditional, right? So all of these things talk about what is likely to happen in the future, a likely outcome. So in the first conditional, we're not just using the present simple anymore, right? Because we're talking about the future. In the if clause, we still use a present simple verb, but in the main clause, we use the future tense, will. If this thing happens, then this will likely happen. It will probably happen. We can't be absolutely sure. I think so. If you don't eat now, you'll be hungry later. If she doesn't call, I'll be annoyed. And just like in the zero conditional, we can still use if or when in the if clause. And it depends on how sure we are that something is going to happen. And when tells us that we're very, very confident that the action in the if clause is going to happen. And the result in the main clause is the most likely outcome. When the sun sets, it will get cold. Now, what about this sentence? If aliens arrive on Earth, I will greet them. Now, I'll give you a clue. There is something not quite right about this sentence. Something about it sounds strange, but it has a present simple verb and will with the base verb following, so it looks right. But this isn't a possible situation. Well, not really. I could be unintentionally starting a debate about the existence of alien life right here, but this is more of a hypothetical situation, right? So it would be better to use the second conditional to talk about this hypothetical situation. So we talked about the zero conditional, we've talked about the first conditional, but what's the difference between them? And why would you choose one over the other? Let's take a look. If you leave the milk out, it spoils. If you leave the milk out, it will spoil. Which one's correct? It's a trick question. They're both correct. They're both possible. But choosing to use the zero or the first conditional does change the meaning of the sentence a little. So in the first sentence, we're stating a general fact. It's true, right? In general, in life, at any moment, when you leave milk out of the fridge, it spoils. So I might use the zero conditional to explain to a child that milk spoils when it's not in the fridge, right? The child didn't know that fact beforehand. I'm telling them so that they know in the future. When I use the first conditional sentence, I'm telling you about a possible outcome based on the current situation. So it's like advice or warning about a present situation, something that is specific. So imagine that you've just made a coffee, you left the milk on the bench, and then you've gone off to the living room to watch some telly. So I'm using the first conditional now to warn you or remind you about what might happen if you don't put the milk in the fridge. So I'm not telling you a general life lesson or a fact about life. You probably already know that milk spoils, but I'm giving you a suggestion or a reminder that you should put it in the fridge. Now let's look at a few more comparisons. When the sun sets, it gets cold. Compare it to when the sun sets, it will get cold. So I'm using the zero conditional again to talk about a general fact, all right? All around the world, in general, it gets colder when the sun sets. But if you're about to leave the house and you're wearing just a t-shirt, and I might be a little bit worried that you're going to get cold, then I might use the first conditional sentence to remind you that, in a few hours when the sun sets, it's probably going to get cold and maybe you should bring a jacket. Let's try one more. If she doesn't call, I'm annoyed. If she doesn't call, I'll be annoyed. So in the first situation, the zero conditional is used because it's something that happens a lot, right? She often doesn't call, and every time I'm annoyed. Every time she doesn't call, I'm annoyed. It's a really general statement about how I feel on many occasions. In the first conditional example, though, I'm talking about a specific phone call. Maybe I'm waiting for a colleague to call. I'm waiting for some information that I need to finish writing my report by the deadline, and she promised to call me this afternoon. So I'm not talking about her general calling habits. I don't always get annoyed with her, but I am talking about right now in this moment. I'm worried that my colleague's not going to call, and I'm just expressing that it's really annoying because I'm trying to finish my report. Okay.
Okay, students. Now open your books in the page 78. Espero que el video haya sido bastante explicativo. Ahora vamos a revisar entonces las diapositivas acerca de esta parte del grammar. So we have the grammar conditionals. Letter A, zero conditional, el condicional cero. Now, Vasquez Monica, please, can you read the definition?
Use the zero conditional to talk about simple facts.
Entonces, como decía en el video, ¿no? Usamos el condicional cero para hablar acerca de hechos, ¿sí? Hechos simples, cosas que son de la vida real. Y en la estructura, como usted puede ver, usted va a encontrar el condicional if más el presente simple, el sujeto y más el presente simple. En las dos cláusulas está siempre el presente simple, ¿sí? Es como, por ejemplo, si yo digo, si llueve, me mojo, ¿sí? En los dos están en presente simple, ¿no es cierto? Si es que digo, si estudio, tengo una buena nota. Entonces, ese es el condicional cero. En el español también utilizamos mucho. Ahora vamos a leer los ejemplos. Please, Martín Palma, can you read the first example?
Okay. If you take out students' lens, you don't need to work. You don't need to work if you take on out students' lens.
Bien, entonces
If
aquí,
you hit chocolate.
a ver, no, hasta ahí nomás, ¿sí? En este primer ejemplo, lo que hacen aquí, luego del igual, es hacerle esta oración, invertirla, ponen primero la primera cláusula, la segunda, perdón, se pone primero y le quitan la coma. ¿Sí se dan cuenta? Eso nomás es lo que hacen en este ejemplo. El significado de esta oración, if you take out the student loans, si tú tomas un préstamo estudiantil, tú no necesitas trabajar. You don't need to work. A eso se refiere en esta oración. Anaí Paguay, please read the second example.
If you eat chocolate, it's meals. Chocolate meals if you eat.
¿Ya? Dice, si tú calientas chocolate, se derrite. ¿No es cierto? It melts, se derrite. El chocolate se derrite si tú lo calientas. Eso es lo que hacen aquí. Le invierten, le ponen la segunda cláusula al principio y le quitan la coma. ¿Sí? A eso se refiere, no se confunda, solo está haciendo eso, ¿ya? Lo que es más, nosotros ahora ya sabemos cuando utilizamos el condicional cero, ¿no? Cuando hablamos acerca de un hecho que está en la realidad y pues las dos cláusulas deben ir en presente simple. Esa es la característica principal. Now, the first conditional. Tatiana Bonilla, please read the definition.
Use the first conditional to talk about possibilities. These things could happen in the present or in the future.
Muy bien, usamos el condicional primero para hablar acerca de posibilidades. Estas cosas podrían suceder en el presente o en el futuro. Tenemos aquí la estructura, ¿no? El condicional if, luego el verbo en presente simple, el sujeto, ¿sí? Más la posibilidad, ¿no? Will, podría ser en el futuro, y el verbo. Lo que tiene aquí luego del igual es esta misma oración, pero cambiado el orden y quitada la coma. Como tiene aquí en estos ejemplos, ¿sí? For example, Malena Lobato, please read the first example.
If your boss likes you, he will let you take 2 weeks off. Your boss will let you take 2 weeks off if he likes you.
Muy bien. Entonces, aquí tienen el primer condicional. If your boss likes you, si le agradas a tu jefe, si le agradas a tu jefe, he will let you take 2 weeks off. Él te dejará tomarte 2 semanas afuera o de vacaciones, ¿no? Dejará tomar 2 semanas de vacaciones. Aquí dice, tu jefe te dejará tomar 2 semanas de vacaciones si le agradas. Eso es lo que hacen aquí. Luego del igual, solo le cambia el orden y le quitan la coma, ¿no es cierto? Vamos a ver entonces a Alejandra Trujillo. Please read the second example.
If Evelyn is free tomorrow, she will go shopping with her sister. Evelyn will go shopping with her sister if she is free tomorrow.
Muy bien. If Evelyn is free tomorrow, si Evelyn está libre mañana, she will go shopping with her sister. Ella irá a comprar con su hermana. Evelyn irá a comprar con su hermana si ella está libre mañana. Entonces, esa es la condición, ¿no? Y este es el primer condicional, porque la primera oración antes de la coma, la primera cláusula está en presente, en cambio la segunda está en futuro. Es una posibilidad. Do you understand? Okay, letter C, different forms. We can also use other modals or the imperative to express different meanings. Podríamos usar otros modales o el imperativo para expresar diferentes significados. Tenemos aquí unas oraciones, ¿cierto? El if, la condición, el resultado ¿Y para lo que se utiliza? Podemos utilizarlo para expresar posibilidad, obligación, advertencia, permiso y para expresar una orden. Por ejemplo, en la primera, if I keep my job, I might make it happen. Si mantengo mi trabajo, podría hacer que suceda. If you use the kitchen, you must do the dishes. Aquí ya está expresando en cambio una obligación. Si tú usas la cocina, tú debes, ¿no es cierto? Es una orden, una obligación. Tú debes hacer o lavar los platos. La tercera, if she takes a plane, she should ask for a window seat. Es como un aviso, ¿no? Una sugerencia. Dice, si ella toma el avión, ella preguntará o podría preguntar por el asiento a la ventana. Luego tenemos, if you have a driver's license, you can drive. Si tú tienes o obtienes la licencia de conducir, tú puedes manejar. Le está expresando el permiso, ¿cierto? Finalmente tenemos, if someone's called, tell them to call back later. Si alguien me llama, diles que me llamen más tarde. Es una orden. Ok. Vamos ahora a los ejercicios de Grammar Practice. Fill in the blanks. Write the correct form of each verb in the blank. ¿No es cierto? Vamos a utilizar la forma correcta de los verbos en cada uno de estos espacios en blanco. Eso no está nada complicado. Vamos a seguir haciendo eso, aunque me parece que ya nos pasamos de la hora.